Hello Year 11s. Once again, before you start writing anything, press pause on this video, make sure you've read this poem a couple of times, and then press play and make lots of annotations all over your anthology. Okay, so a couple of things to say first of all about this poem before we go any deeper. It can be read sort of very superficially. On one level, it's just a sort of reminder of our childhood and about the highs and lows of the game of hide and seek, but on a sort of deeper level, this poem can it can almost be read as a metaphor for how someone might deal with situations in their adult life. So sort of having to wait and endure difficulties so that they can eventually achieve something great. Okay, so key themes in this poem, we've got loneliness, childhood, nostalgia perhaps, certainly ideas to do with time and waiting and being patient. Loads of key images, so key contrasting images really. We've got light and dark, so if you compare the start of the poem with the end of the poem, we've got light, sort of very positive, very quickly changing into dark, negative feelings. We've got the contrast of noise and silence. Okay, so the noises that the others are making when they're trying to find the boy in the poem, but how quiet and how silent the boy is when he's hiding, and when he begins to feel sort of lonely and isolated. And that then leads on to another key image in the poem, which is itself isolation. Okay, so once again we've got a one-stanza poem, one long stanza, which, okay, if we're going to attach a deeper meaning, first of all could be representative of the relentless flow of time, perhaps as we hurtle towards adulthood as a child. But it could also be, more specifically to this poem, perhaps the breathless attempt by this boy to win a game of hide and seek. I think it helps to build tension, so it's just sort of one long train of thought, different length lines, and it's trying to really capture this one breathless moment that the boy is having during this game. It's written in free verse, once again, so no strong rhythmic structure. The poet isn't bound by any technical rhyming structure, and again this could try to be representative of the fact that it is being told from a young boy's point of view, and so the simplicity, the nature of this poem and the simplicity of this poem would certainly, we could suggest, represent that. And the main sort of voice, if you like, is a mixture of both the internal voice of a child, and there is some external direct speech within the poem which we'll pick up on. Just a little bit about tone then. We have a very sort of stark contrast, like we do with many images in this poem, but the tone starts off as a sort of triumphant and excited tone, certainly in the first line, with the example of direct speech. So I'm ready, come and find me, with the exclamation marks. It's a very happy, excited tone of voice, triumphant almost, and if you contrast that as the poem goes on, it seems to become a tone of very profound disappointment, certainly towards the end. Okay, so we've got the first line of the poem then. Quite a few different things to say here, so bear with me. So first of all, we have the two short, sharp imperative sentences, call out, call out. So they're imperative sentences, commands, okay. And I think this starts us off with a very immediate sense of urgency at the beginning of this poem. And the alliteration of the hard C sound, cool, cool and come, adds to this impact. We then have the example of direct speech. Okay, so I'm ready, come and find me, along with the exclamation marks. So then adding to the fact that it's a very happy, excited tone. I think it adds the sense of realism to this poem, including some direct speech, as well as adding to the drama from the two imperatives early on. Okay, the poem then goes on to discuss, with lots of sensory imagery actually, the boy's environment in his hiding place. The smell is described as one near the seaside, and ideas when you think about the seaside, they're incredibly positive. They're usually happy times. I don't know about you, but certainly as a child that was one of my sort of most treasured memories. So again, it's adding to this positive tone early on in the poem. However, the use of sibilants, okay, so the sort of hissing S sound in sacks, tool shed, smell, seaside, this, if you like, compresses the atmosphere of this shed, and almost very early on starts to give quite a dark image of the shed, of not an incredibly nice place. But contrast that with the ideas, the positive ideas of being at the seaside, and it being a happy time, a happy place. Okay, here we've got an example of the boy or the child talking to himself. They'll never find you. The use of you, okay, this pronoun you is used throughout this poem to emphasise that he's talking to himself, and it emphasises this idea of isolation, okay, throughout the poem, one of the key themes. This boy's very much on his own. He doesn't have anybody else to talk to because obviously he's playing hide and seek, so he's having to talk to himself. Okay, we've got an example of a rhyming couplet. If you have a look at lines 4 and 5, be careful that your feet aren't sticking out, wiser not to risk another shout. Little rhyming couplet there. I suggest it conveys an anxious feeling of the boy being found, okay? Which is interesting because right before that he's reassuring himself and he seems confident that they'll never find you, but in the same breath almost, you can tell that the boy is still worried and obviously quite anxious about the fact that he could be found at any moment. And then the poem moves on now to this quite abrupt sentence, the floor is cold. So this is where the boy's discomfort becomes something that's quite tangible now. By tangible I mean something that you can actually touch, you can feel, you can see it. It's a thing that you can try and describe. Whereas before it might have just been a feeling and a sort of anxious emotion. Now he can physically feel that this floor is cold and he is uncomfortable. And this idea is also emphasised by the monosyllabic words in that sentence. The floor is cold. Each word is one syllable. So it's again emphasised this abruptness of this sentence coming straight in. So as well as feeling excitement for this game, certainly the excitement he felt at the start of the poem, he is also starting to feel discomfort, and that's something that's becoming more obvious now as we move through this poem. This verb prowling suggests almost animal behaviour, doesn't it? It makes the others, the people that are looking for him, sound almost predatory. So it's quite, if you can imagine, if you were being preyed upon, if people are prowling around looking for you, it is quite a worrying image that it casts, the use of this verb. The alliteration here in the words heard and hushed adds a breathless effect to this moment in the poem. The boys who are looking for him, or the children that are looking for him, are right outside the door, and he's talking to himself, obviously, but it's almost as if he's whispering to himself, so he's not found. Now we have a set of very brief instructions. These short commands, I think, help to build the tension in the poem. Will he be discovered? Won't he? And along with that comes the alliteration of the hard D sound. Don't, and dumb. Okay, so short commands, building tension, as he's about to perhaps be discovered. Okay, here we have an example of assonance. in line 12 with stumbles and mutters, and then further on in the following line we've got the scuffle, so that the repeated sound. And I think the use of this assonance links together actions and noise that the others are making, so it links those two together. And for the next few lines here, the poet describes the boy sort of delaying his victory, but don't come out just yet. They'll try the lane and then the greenhouse and then back here again, so he's certain that they will come back for him. He's going to stay where he is just for a little bit longer to sort of bask in his triumph of having the best hiding place of the group. Okay, so finally we've got the boy finally bursting out of the shed, celebrating his success with the exclamations, "I've won, here I am, come and own up, I've caught you." But unfortunately it's to no avail. There's no one around to hear his cries and to share in his celebration. Lines 25 and 26, we've got examples here of personification. So the darkening garden watches, and also the bushes hold their breath. So this is highlighting the isolation and the loneliness the boy feels. He's come out of his hiding place, having endured the isolation of the shed, and he's come out only to discover that he is still alone. It's quite a sinister image. It appears with the darkening gardens, and the fact that he's being watched. It's a threatening place. Even though he's out of the shed, he's entered somewhere, if you like, even worse. And then he appears to ask a question, but where are they who sought you? And the reply is, if you like, the resounding silence that is the end of the poem. Once again highlighting just how alone this boy is and how isolated he has become. Okay, so once again, listen to this video a couple of times. Make sure you've got a full page of annotations on your anthology page, and if you have any spare time left over, have a little Google search, maybe go on YouTube and type the poem in and see if there's any videos of other numpties like me talking about it, and see what their points of view are, and see if they've got anything else you could add to your annotations. Okay, thanks guys.